So 7 steps to conducting the perfect nonprofit board retreat. How many of us have a hard time scheduling this because we can't find the right time? It's longer than our usual meetings. We'll talk a little bit about that, talk about how to get people to show up, how to get them engaged, all the best tips from the Pride team today. We're excited to have you with us. And I think Jake is going to kick it off. So
Yes.
Jake, over to you.
Thanks so much. This was a little bit in response to a rising demand in this question from a lot of our clients and a lot of our constituents. The pandemic put a pause on a lot of retreat type stuff that boards or volunteers do. And as we've kind of come out of that in the last year or so, gradually, we've had a lot of like, hey, maybe we should do this again. It used to be the case that a lot of people would do a every single annual on the calendar year. Some people do it every other year or with a campaign or just as they feel like they needed. So we're getting a lot of questions about, I'm having a hard time getting people back together. We're having all these issues. So we've kind of put together what we've found to be the most effective. We've done lots and lots of these retreats with our clients over the years, and there's a pretty like easy pipeline. It's a step-by-step, 7 steps, if you will, all the way to walk through how to kind of get these set up and also just maximize the time, because it is a bunch of time. It's a lot of time for people. It's a lot of time for you, and you can get a whole lot out of it. We'll talk about some of the advantages of that. And then we'll also close with some of like the absolute don'ts, just some easy mistakes that we could say, hey, just make sure you don't do these things or keep these things in mind as you go. So it'll be pretty straightforward, very linear today if you're thinking about doing a retreat. But now that we're kind of in endemic times or whatever you call it, we're back in precedented times. I don't know what we're calling it these days, but now that we're there, we can certainly safely start to meet much more regularly now. And this is a great way to get that kicked off. So anytime that we meet with our VIPs, we call those very important philanthropists, not just people. But we have to be very efficient with their time so that we're letting them know, hey, if we do this again, this is going to be purposeful for the organization and it's going to be purposeful for you. You kind of get one chance to do this correctly and make them feel like their time was well spent. You typically will not get a second chance. Hey, we're doing another retreat. And they think, oh, I remember that last one. That was not a good use of my afternoon, or that was not a good use of my day and a half, or that really ate into my weekend and it didn't feel purposeful. So we're going to be really careful that it feels like it's moving things along. You're getting a lot out of it. They're getting a lot out of it. It's purposeful for the organization. And this goes for your governing board. It could be a foundation board. It could be a fundraising team. It all applies across the board, but this is about empowering our volunteers, getting them all in the same room and getting them really excited about what's coming next, kind of energized about the future. So we're going to work through how in 7 steps to be successful. The first thing before you do anything else is in picking that date, you want to schedule it around your key leadership. There are certain people, and I don't need to tell you who they need to be because you already know. You know who needs to be in that room to make sure that you're successful. It's probably not just one person. It's probably a handful of people. These are your really strong, consistent board members, your consistent supporters of people who are always advocating. They've been with you a long time. We got to start with saying, hey, I've got a few dates in mind. We're looking at a board retreat, this far out, 2 months out, 1 month out, 6 months, however far out you want to go. But say, how would these dates work for you? Could you hold these dates for us? Is this something you could do? Are you on vacation this week? Do you have any important work meetings that would be disruptive? Like any of these work, kind of send that out and get kind of a feeler for it. We have to nail getting these people in the room. So determine who those key attendees would be, kind of write down, just brain dump, make your short list. Send them a message, call them, send them an email saying, here are some of the dates we're playing with. What do you think about these? Any of these absolutely won't work for you. And then also, key thing to remember, don't forget your own internal leadership. If you have a CEO or an ED that has to be there, make sure they're not on vacation too. It seems like an easy thing to overlook, but we have made that mistake before. So just get that key leadership put in place first. If you have someone who can't make it, it's not the end of the world, but there are people we have to have in the room. And bonus points, if possible, call all your attendees and clear them dates to help them feel like they are VIPs, and just let them know ahead of time, hey, we're thinking about scheduling these retreats, but before we do, we want to make sure that you're there. One of the most important things about this is you being in that room and you being able to talk, and we know you care about this thing. So just being totally transparent about, hey, before we send this out to everybody, I do want to make sure these dates work with you. And that goes a long way in kind of encouraging their attendance and making them feel like it's very, very important to you and to them. So let's say about those dates first. Next, you want to get input on the agenda. The best way to ensure that that time and that space and that what you're doing there in the retreat is purposeful and feels purposeful to everybody, is to actually ask, is just to say, hey, here's a sample agenda. And if you need a sample agenda for retreat, we have a ton of those, and we can show you kind of the things that tend to be discussed, some of the big action moving items that we have. But send it out and say, you know, what things should we be discussing? What can we put on the agenda that's going to be really, really important? And getting their input, and especially assigning them out. I mean, we've all seen agendas where you have like list of things and it's the same person all the way down presenting on every single thing. It's like, this probably could have been just a long email. If this was a speech, why are you getting us all in the room here? So having different people lead different parts of the discussion makes such a huge difference. And if they feel like they're showing up to present on something or to moderate or to lead a specific thing that was their idea, the likelihood that they feel that was important and the likelihood they show up is very, very, very high. So getting that inclusion on the front end on what you're building that agenda will result in that involvement later, and getting as many people as possible involved in that agenda. If you have 12 people on your board, see if you can get 7, 8 of them to present or moderate something. You know, try to get as many of them in the mix as you can. Maybe the new ones don't do it as much if you have to sort people or somehow, or if someone's uncomfortable, doesn't want to do it, but get as many different people talking as possible so that they feel like, hey, I'm contributing. It's important that I have to be there so that I can do this. And what you want to do with that is ask your chair, your leadership, and of course your Pride team member, what is important to cover, and kind of getting input, saying, here's what our leadership wants, here's what the board is thinking, and then I've got some sample agendas from Pride that I can walk through and make sure that I'm checking all the boxes. And just be smart about how you have these conversations, so that you're not going up to your leadership and say, hey, what do you think we should put on the agenda? But you're actually coming with a plan and an idea and saying, hey, here are some of the key things that I have on the agenda. What do you think's missing from here? You know, this is like a key thing if you're trying to get someone to help you grocery shop. Say if you have a spouse or if you have a family member or a roommate, for saying, hey, what do you want me to get at the grocery store? They're like, I thought you were going to the grocery store. Why are you the one coming to me with this? A lot better way to say that would be, hey, here are the 6 things I'm going to get. Anything else you want me to add to this list, just let me know. I'll be, leaving in a minute here. So it's like a softer ask. You're not feeling like you're having to put the burden on them, specifically saying, here's what I got kind of outlined already. Anything else you want to add before I kind of start finalizing this? And just that way they feel included, but you're not putting the burden of work and figuring out what should go on there first, because they kind of want you to take the lead on that usually. And then of course, we love your bonus points. Help them to think your ideas are their ideas. And one of the best ways to do that is ask them, do you want this or do you want this? Do you think it's more important to talk through this first or this first? Now you want to talk through both of those things, but for the fact that they say, I really think we should be thinking about our campaign prep, that's got to go right at the beginning of the agenda, right? And you're like, great idea. I think we'll put that right at the top. You got to get campaign prep on that agenda. But now the fact that they've suggested it, they feel ownership. Now you put them as the moderator for that. And now they're a lot more excited about that specific agenda item. All right. Step 3. Have your agenda be action oriented. So again, we want to really stay away from information dump. Now there's some opportunity of like, so-and-so is going to present on the progress of the campaign, or so-and-so is going to give an update on this, or we're going to walk through the minutes of the last, there are certain things that you have to say that are straight information, but just think through, like, if this can be an email, if it could be an email, maybe we don't put it on the agenda first. Let's talk through the things that truly we can take advantage of being together, having opinions, having discussion. What are those things that we can't do effectively over an email chain that would be a lot better if we have time in person? So if you don't know where to start with that, this is our list of kind of like easy brain dump ideas. The first is problems that we need to be solved. We have some problems that we've identified. We don't know exactly what we're going to do with taking the organization this direction or that direction. These are the issues that we're having. Put those on the agenda right off the bat. Let's address the things that we know that we have to take care of. That's a great thing that facilitates discussion. The second is specific decisions that have to be made. That again, if you have one person who's very participating or very participatory on the email chain, might feel like they have a strong opinion, but they're just the one who's available that day, emailing and responding and doing that. If there's something big you have to decide, even if it's not an issue, like we do have to decide what our budget for this is this year. Put that on the agenda so you can have some discussion around it. And that also allows you to kind of feel like you're checking things off. So as you're moving through that agenda, you're like, great, now we've wrapped up this discussion on X, Y, and Z. We've decided that ABC. Next agenda item. So that no matter, even if it's a long agenda or a long retreat, short retreat, as you're walking through that, you're like, we're checking things off. We're making progress. We've made some decisions. I feel purpose for being here. I'm excited to continue to do this. The next is tasks to be accomplished. What are you going to leave the retreat with? Saying, we're all going to have some assignments. Maybe it's a lot of the burden of that's on the staff, and that's okay. But what are the specific things that from our discussion, from our problem solving, from our decision making, what are those specific things that we need to assign out before our next board meeting, before our next board retreat, before the fall, before the summer, whatever it might be? But let's decide these tasks now. Let's make sure they're realistic. They fit within our current time frame. They, work with everything we have on our Gantt chart, everything that must be kind of decided there in advance. And then the last thing is what objectives need to be set. The famous story of like, if you don't know where you're going, you'll never get there. Of course, we need to aim at something. Obviously, goal setting is a whole nother discussion. That's a whole nother forum, but looking at putting some specific and numerical benchmarks on something and a specific time frame on that thing, and then establishing that as a group, owning that goal as a group, and then walking away is an excellent use of just kind of the team building excitement for the future. Here's this new future that we're imagining, and here are actual tasks and step-by-step to-dos to make sure that we're getting there. So we're taking action on these things, and it's not just, oh yeah, that's a problem. Isn't that a bummer? Okay, what are the things we can actually do to make progress? If you can't run, then walk. If you can't walk, then crawl. Let's start taking and chipping away at addressing some of these things. So again, all of these things go back to, these are actions, these are decisions, these are discussions. It is as little information dissemination as possible. The way that we've cleared that up in the past is send out like a information booklet ahead of time, like 2 weeks out, saying, hey, we're going to discuss all these things, but instead of spending time in like going through a PowerPoint or reading to you when you're all in this room together, here's a packet we prepare with all the information, updates. We've got the latest numbers on our fundraising, with the latest numbers on our volunteers, pledges, like all the things we need to talk about. Read through this at your leisure. We'll be discussing some of these items and making some decisions, but we don't have to waste your time together to sit and read. So again, action-oriented is key. And for your bonus points, make sure your action items stand out on your agenda by italics or underlining that visually cue that verb that their voice is needed. So whatever that verb is, vote, decide, set, whatever that verb is, highlight it so that you feel like as you're going through those agenda items, that one piece is the thing you're trying to accomplish. With that, I will turn it over to Shauna to take us to number 4.
Oh, thank you so much, Jake. Number 4, fantastic. We want to be aware that everyone needs to participate, right? We love for people to be active participants, not silent and, quiet and the quiet one in the corner. Great ways to do this. An icebreaker. Do an icebreaker to get everyone talking. If you've been with us at academies, you've been with us, we generally try to do this. How do we break the ice, quite literally, not literally, but in a room where we are trying to get people to create relationships or to feel comfortable with each other, to feel comfortable just in general. Ask them, have them all answer a question that is off the wall. Don't make it something intense. And just help them to come out of their shell, right? Encourage them. You are the encouragers, you are the comforters. So help them to feel as though their voice is needed. They need to participate. They're there for a reason. They're not there to leave feeling like they didn't participate. How do we do that? We get them talking. Have them share their why. I love to do this with board meetings, have, one person share their why at each place. But if you're having a tough time getting people to engage or talk at all, have them share their why. Why are you here? Maybe don't say it, rudely. Hey, why are you here? But why? What is your why for supporting the organization? What's your story? We'd love to hear it. I'd like to take some samples or some examples of why people are here so that we can learn from each other. We build it in an encouraging way. Take notes. Please take notes as the development, whatever you are, whatever hat you wear within the development space, please take really good notes or have someone take really good notes for you of little key things that they say, little drops of candy or fruit that they put into what they say, about something that they really enjoy or something that is meaningful for them. And make sure to put that into their donor records whenever you're done so that you can reflect on that. And then even better, if you take really good notes, if I make note that, Jared has a little bit of an obsession with Mario, then I might bring that back to the table later to make him feel like, hey, she listened. She gets me, Maybe she really likes Luigi. I don't know, like, but then he feels connected. And whenever we call on people in that sort, then they automatically sit up and listen, right? Because they're like, uh-oh, they're paying attention. So I better participate. So that's a little trick that we love to include, where you are taking notes and you're making sure that later if you're not probably going to be able to do it with everybody, but somebody who's being quiet, you might be able to use something that they said to be able to encourage them to come out of their shell. And bonus points, when you send out your follow-up, which I'll touch on in just a second, mention something specifically they added to the retreat. So for Jared, it might be that, we really appreciate knowing that March 10th is Mario written out, that really added to the retreat. Say something specific that they said to let them know that they were a valuable participant, because then they're going to participate in the future. Number 5, record the discussions. So just a second ago, we're coaching you to take notes on your donors, on your prospects, on your board members, to make sure that you have your personal information on their personal information to be effective, right? That's just being a good fundraiser. But we want to record the discussions, take minutes of it so that it is official and it is meaningful. Take minutes of highlights and the action items. Make sure that you are writing down who first, who seconds, who makes the motions, right? That helps it to bring some validity to your meeting. And you want for people to feel like there is a true reason for them being there. Action needs to be taken, correct? So also be clear in determining takeaways and next steps. Make sure that you are assigning out what needs to be done. Those points that Jake spoke about earlier, we want to make sure that each person leaves with something that they feel that is theirs to own, that they are bringing to the table. In your minutes, you want to include, we have assigned this special giving committee this task, right? We have this person has spoken up and will report out on this by the next meeting. Include that in the notes. I'm also a big fan of keeping them pretty high level for the board, right? You don't need to, when minutes have every single word that is spoken, they are so stinking exhausting. And what else are they? An incredible opportunity for error. And if you've ever had a board member who reads every word that you write, they will find plenty of errors. So try to keep it high level for your board, but be more intimate in your notes, right? That's the place for the intimacy, is in your personal notes, not for the entire minutes, okay? Bonus points, this is just good practice, right? These bonus points are just good practice. But sometimes if we haven't thought of them or had them presented to us, we just don't know to do it. Do the minutes as soon as you can following the meeting, so you don't forget things, and send them out as soon as they're approved as a touch point. Hey, thanks so much for being here. Just a heads up, here's the minutes. If you have some time, read through it and make sure that your recollection matches mine. We greatly appreciate if you take some time to look at it, and coach your team to do that as well. Do their meeting minutes as soon as the meeting is done, or as soon as they can, following the meeting, so that it's fresh, right? Because we've all been in that situation where we come up to the next meeting and we're like, oh my goodness, I have no idea who said that. I remember us talking about that, but who was it that was so gung-ho about that? Don't get in that situation. Very easy not to. Just take some prioritization to do them as quickly as you can. Number 6, build in social time. Oh, my Lanta. Us as fundraisers and volunteers, we are especially social animals, but our volunteers are really going to be social animals, whether or not they come quiet or not. So we encourage you to allow breakouts. If you don't have it within your agenda, a good space to have a breakout, do an ask practice. We'll help you with that. Do some role play, do some case studies. You are a fundraising board. Please tell me that you have a fundraising board, okay? And if you don't, we will help you with that. But have them interact with each other. Have them practice some asks on each other. You practice asks on them, and them think that you're really, really good at what you do and be impressed by you, right? Make sure that there is time for people to interact with each other. They are teammates. We are all in this boat together. Let's learn how to row really well next to each other, okay? Don't forget that icebreaker helps in your stewardship efforts. We as a team, we really like to utilize this to be able to say how much we appreciate you and how much we listen. Have them talk about their favorite candy or their favorite snack or whatever it is, and then bring that to them when they do something stinking special. Okay. Like small things that you can capitalize on that makes someone's day. One time, an organization that I was with, when they went around in their volunteer committee the first time, or their employee committee the first time, the icebreaker was, what's your favorite ice cream? And when they reached their goal, that team brought in pints of everyone's favorite ice cream. And they were mind boggled. So simple, so easy. But you can utilize what you're doing to make sure that you are empowering them through inclusion. And make sure to introduce newcomers to the team. I think we probably also have all been in a situation where we're new and we don't get introduced, and not that we're like, begging for attention, but then it's awkward, right? We're like, I'm just the person that's, that has no idea who anyone is. So before each meeting, make sure that you're taking notes that, like, this person's new to town. It'd probably be a good idea to spend some special time highlighting them. And then bonus points, consider having offsite with exciting food and beverages, allowing for relationship building. Huge supporter of this. Please don't have it, if it's important for them to come to your organization, have them come to your organization, but make sure that it's somewhere that is maybe not a privilege, but is exciting to go to. And have food and beverage that they enjoy. Don't have a couple of Lay's bags of chips and, some bottled water. And these people are donating their time and talent and treasure to you. Make sure you got cookies, make sure you got something special. Bring in, again, we're saying thank you to these people just as much as we're asking from them. So if you're having a board retreat, make sure that the venue has had some thought put into it, please. All right. And the follow-up. I'm a firm believer in this. I hope all of you are too. Email as soon as possible following your board meeting or your board retreat with the meeting minutes, with clearly defined next steps. And go one step beyond that. Your minutes are probably going to be included as an attachment in your email body. Make sure that you are calling out what everyone's job is. Okay. Just a reminder that this group said that they were going to contact 3 people before our next meeting or whatever it is, so that we can't really always count on our volunteers to read through the minutes, except for that one who's going to read through them with a fine-tooth comb. So make sure that you're making it as easy as possible. Okay. Always have that next meeting date set on there. Please do that. Always have your next meeting date set on there so that they have it in writing. They've got it in the minutes. They've got it in the email. They can put it on their calendar right then. Sometimes if they're really tech savvy, they can just click on it and it makes a calendar invite, right? And then the main outcome are a few highlights. Celebrate what happened. Celebrate. We are empowerers. That's what we do. I don't know if that's a word, but we are here to make people feel excited about things. So make sure that it's not just black and white text. Here's what happened. Here's what happens next. Da, 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 da. Make sure you talk about something really great that came from it. Hey, we came into this. We're all a little disgruntled because we had this big issue, but we worked through it together as a team. And that was pretty amazing. These people that, added their input, fantastic. And then bonus points. Handwritten thank you cards with a specific addition they made personally go out after the retreat. Please do this. If you have board members, please give them a handwritten thank you card after for attending, and tell them that you appreciate that they have a love for Mario. Something short and sweet. It doesn't have to be a novel, just 3 lines. Really appreciate the time that you took out of your day. I know your time is valuable. Really appreciate this. And here's something specific you said that I heard, and it was important. Okay. I'm going to turn it over to Marty now, who is going to do the fun sections of do nots and do's, and she will take us home.
Thank you, Shauna. Yes, I love this. We decided to do the recap today in a sort of reverse to the do, right? Let's do not schedule this board retreat on your own and have half of your VIPs decline. Absolute worst case scenario is you go to all this trouble and you forgot to check everyone's calendar and you have nobody show up, or 2 people show up and they feel like, wow, I'm not going to show up again if I'm the only one, right? You've got to ensure that you have a good group of people there. So make sure that you're not scheduling in a vacuum. Got to communicate on that. Do not do all the work on your own. Ask for input. Again, you know that you do have to have a vision. You have to have general things that you know you need to accomplish, but you've got to get input and buy-in, or again, you are going to be reporting out and talking at them, which is the next don't, right? We do not want to just do something where it could have been a long email, as Jake said. We want this to be meaningful. We want it to be engaging. We want to empower them to make decisions on things by leading them down that path that we know we want to go on, but by giving them the tools to make the right choices and help advance the mission, right? Don't let there be a silent Sam and Sally in the room. Again, important to engage everyone. And if you're properly setting up your agenda, you're halfway there, right? If you get people who are responsible for being the leaders on certain pieces of the agenda, you immediately ensure that they're not going to not talk, right? And then you have to do your orchestrating of engaging them in discussion. Sometimes that's uncomfortable. Sometimes that's calling someone, out to speak about something that they might be uncomfortable about, but do it in a way that you know that everyone has a voice in the room and feels really good about participating. Make sure that you make it easy for people to participate. Don't forget to take notes, both from the stewardship perspective, but also from the action perspective, right? We've got to remember what the next steps are. If we call everyone together, we create a plan, we give them, objectives, they come up with objectives and outcomes, and nobody takes notes. How are we going to follow up? How are we going to follow through? How are we going to make sure that we're productive, right? So we've got to take notes from the sort of minutes perspective, but we also have to take notes on what's important to people. How do we use this as a stewardship opportunity? If we're getting 2, 3, 4 hours of FaceTime with these very important philanthropists, we sure better know something new about them, something about their family, something about a trip they just went on, something about their likes and dislikes and what motivates them. There should be enough interaction in a retreat time frame that you have at least one key note about them that can help you with your stewardship to make sure that you continue to make the volunteerism with your organization meaningful and productive, right? Again, don't forget we're social creatures. Y'all, I have done 3 or 4 retreats in the last less than a year, and they were all super, super productive. But I got to tell you, the best part was when they had that social interaction time. That's when everything becomes real. That's when they recognize that what they're doing is alongside another team of people that are absolutely incredible as well. And it helps them want to do more, better, faster, stronger for you. So you can have the most well-orchestrated actual retreat, and if you don't take the opportunity to give them some social time together, it is a huge missed opportunity. That is the best part, that's where the magic happens, that they can have that social interaction, and make it even more meaningful. So don't forget to schedule that in and make that a priority. Don't forget to follow up and stay top of mind, right? How many of us have gone? We've been like excited. We had a great retreat, a great meeting, a great anything, and then it's crickets and we don't hear from anyone for like 3 months. I have lost my enthusiasm. You have lost me. We've got to have timely follow-up. We've got to stay top of mind. We've got to show that what we said we were going to do is important, and we've got to lead them down that path, because people get busy, they get distracted. If it's not a priority to us, the staff, how can we expect it to be a priority to them, right? We can't come back 2 months later and say, did everybody do what they said they were going to do? When we haven't followed up and we haven't led them down that path. That is our job, to make sure that they feel really good about it and that we stay top of mind and that they continue to follow up and follow through with what we decided as a group, what they decided, right? Okay, so those are the don'ts. We're going to boil these do's down into some very simple keywords. Do have a board retreat that is productive, right? Accomplish something. Meaningful, let's have that social interaction. Let's have something heartstrings. Let's have some emotion. Remember why we're here, right? Forward thinking, right? If we are not moving forward, we're moving backwards, right? We've got to be forward thinking, and helpful to the organization's mission. Let's be real. If we decide a bunch of things and we're productive, but we're not working towards the overall objective or the mission, we missed the point, right? We've got to make sure that we are focused on the organization's mission and its philanthropic needs. That's where the lack of planning, if somehow we said, hey, what should we put on the agenda? And someone says, oh, let's talk about a golf tournament. If that's not the direction we want to go, we should not have given them that opportunity to go down that path, right? We want to lead them down the right path so that we can have a helpful, productive, meaningful, forward-thinking retreat. So you want to have the team leaving thinking that was actually really great. I am so glad I came. I almost didn't come because I'm so busy, but they talked to me in advance and told me to mark my calendar. So I kind of felt guilty and I had to show up, but I got to be honest, I was kind of not looking forward to it, but wow, I am so glad I went. I will be back next time. That was meaningful. I learned something new. I feel valued and I connected with some really amazing people, right? Okay. Any questions? I know we kind of covered a lot, give you a lot to think about, but does anyone have any questions on having a successful retreat? Frank.
Hi. I had to step away to take the campaign chair's phone call, and you may have covered this, but
Good job.
ideal time, like 4 hours, 2 hours, a full day. I don't know if you talked about that.
No, that's a really great question. And that's not actually something that we talked about. I will speak from my experiences. I think that the amount of time that you can keep people effectively engaged in the sort of work side of it is about 2 hours plus about an hour of social time. I think that is the dialed in effective time frame. So like a 3-hour commitment, having 2 hours of working time and an hour of social time at the end. That's what I've found to be really effective. Jake or Shauna, do you have any differing thoughts on that? I know some places do full day retreats, and that's a very different scenario.
That's what I was going to say for the half dayer. That's perfect, like sweet spot in terms of attention. And especially when you have a lot of busy people, that's an easier commitment. A lot of times like, hey, I need an afternoon. Maybe it's a Sunday afternoon, even you can even pick a weekend. Some organizations have done the full day and some have even done like the full day and the next morning kind of a deal. That's a whole different discussion, but also has been effective too. It depends on how much discussion is needed and how much you have to get done for like the agenda. Like you can almost use the agenda to set the time frame of how much you want. Like we know we have to have these decisions. You can crank through that in an hour. 2 hours plus some social time is way plenty. If it's like, hey, this is a whole strategic planning process, like maybe that does take the day, so you have time to do that too. So you almost want to back into with outcomes in mind instead of perfect time frame, but like 3 hours perfect all day can be great too if you need the extra space.
Okay. And I'm curious, do you have any statistics or input on preference for afternoons or mornings, midday?
So Frank, I have seen both to be productive. I think that the communities that feel that the social interaction is in the form of like a happy hour. A lot of communities like to think, not every community, that's why I say, not every community thinks in that way, but the ones that look at that opportunity as their connecting time and they're willing to spend that time together, I think do better as the afternoon and then have that social. However, I've also seen a phenomenal morning lead into like a lunch sort of connecting time. And I know that a lot of people are much more, focused and productive in the morning, but sometimes you also find that people in the morning, if they have, a day job, if they're not just retirees, right, that they're thinking about getting back to their work. So I think when you get them in the afternoon, you're able to get them focused and then give them that social time and they're just kind of more relaxed. So pros and cons to both. I've seen both work. It kind of just take the take the advice of your leaders, I think is the best answer to that. Whatever they're going to feel best about, they're going to lead down that path. Anything to
And
add?
then
Jake?
one more curiosity question, having done these in the past, do you recommend having a facilitator or a separate leader, not myself or the board president or the campaign chair leading it?
We've done
Yeah.
both. We've led a lot, and a lot of times it's for those kind of same reasons of like, we just want us to be able to focus on the decision making, the outcome, and the discussion, and just not have to worry about the moderating. And we do those all the time. And sometimes it's like, you know what, we want this to be volunteer led. Like, we'll make the agenda as the staff person, but we really want our chair to step up and take ownership, and that has value in a different way too. So both have been successful. It kind of could do it a little bit based on your goals, whether you want it to kind of coast and be easy, or you want them to kind of be up and empowered. I know Sean has had experience with this as well, so I'm sure
Yeah.
that'd be the way.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to that, Frank. If you're one of our awesome sauce clients, please utilize Pride as to help with facilitating that, because it just brings that third party, but also we're all on the same page. I used to do that with my retreats, and it just was so powerful to be able to have, the experts to be able to walk alongside me in that space. What I would generally try to steer clear of is, you oftentimes will have people in your community that consider themselves to be facilitators of strategic planning. And I think that's what you were going towards, or, that they facilitate meetings on behalf of, the organizations. And they can oftentimes have a completely different vision that you're trying to rein in. And, they're oftentimes trying to stand on a pedestal and get exposure themselves. So I would try to steer clear of that and keep it very mission based. Your internal team, your external volunteers, and amongst that group, you have people who can do the facilitating, whether it's Pride, whether it's your leadership, whether it's a combination of both of those. But for me, I've never had a terribly good experience in trying to bring someone that is an outsider from the inside to facilitate. They could give a discussion on something, but not facilitate because they don't know your team the way you do. They don't know, the people in the room and how that works. So that's just my personal opinion there.
Well, that's a good point. And local people who step up to the plate as facilitators or leaders, yes, are really trying to build their portfolio.
Yeah.
And it's not always productive for the group.
Yeah.
Okay.
You find yourself going, "Oi, I'm going to have to undo that part. Oi, I'm going to have to undo that." Yeah.
Quick question. Whitfield just asked their board trustees what time would work best in their survey. Oh, okay. So one of our clients just did a survey on what the volunteers felt might be the best time of day to do those things. So you know what? Actually, we can pull those numbers and we can share them at another forum and say, hey, last week or 2 weeks ago, we asked about this. You would just throw that data up there. So that's something that we can actually get specific data on for you in just a couple of weeks.
But also a great point that you can poll your people before you make the choice, and then they've already given you input. And if they're saying this is the time that's best, they might show up a little bit more, but you also find that you could be divided, right? So, and you have to decide. So great points. Thank you so much for all your fabulous questions, Frank. Did anyone else have any final questions? I know we're pushing right up on time here, but I'm happy to answer any additional questions that might be out there. Okay, well, you know where to get us if you have additional questions. And just a reminder, we've got some great content out on LinkedIn. If you're not already following us, you should be.